Hey all, Instinct Survivalist coming again with another Two Tip Tuesday. This time we'll be utilizing bark from a standing dead poplar tree two different ways. One to light a fire, one to carry a fire. Actually what's called a fire torch, if you will. Fire torch actually came from Larry Dean Olson's book. It's kind of a reiteration of something I had learned as a kid. Was reading the book recently and I'm like, oh, hey, that is exactly what I learned. And something in the back of my mind says, well, maybe it's because I read the book when I was a kid as well. So all the credit to Larry Dean Olson and Wilderness Outdoor Survival Skills, maybe. Anyway, I'll try to put a link down below so that you can get the book yourself if you want to. It's a great, very lot of knowledge in that book and a great resource. So what we're going to do is we're going to zoom in. We're going to show you some pieces and parts. Basically, I've got a knife. We're going to try to use that, maybe. What I want to do is I actually have a piece of flint that has been doing well so far. So we're going to continue down that path. So let me move the camera and we'll go from there. For debarking the poplar, this is going to be our outside bark for this roll for the torch. And all I've done is just taken and scored around the two edges. Did I use the flint? No. I'll just be honest with you on that. I used my pocket knife. And then I just run a line straight down. So just a line straight down. And all we're trying to do is get that outer layer and the inner layer to come off. Okay. And with a poplar, especially one that's dead, it's pretty simple. You can see I'm just running, literally using the flathead screwdriver on this to make it happen. And it's okay if it's got holes in it. That's not a big deal. This is not a watertight device. If you wanted watertight, then yeah, you want to make sure that you're free of knots, and then you don't poke holes in it. But this already had some in it, which is why I'm using this specific piece. In the long run, I'm just putting pieces together to make this happen. If you're out in the wild, one way to do this is actually using wedges. Very useful. Cut you some wedges and run it underneath. You're going to do the same thing that I'm doing with my flathead screwdriver. Just taking and running underneath it like that. And depending upon how dead it is, it should just pop off fairly easy. So I only had to get the two halves. Once that other half popped, it was done. All I had to do was pull at that point. And you see how smooth. I've got the inner bark and the outer bark. So that makes it real good. I've still got plenty of stick to use for something else or to use another project. Keeping in mind that's inside, outside, if you will. And just as a by the way, for those of you that are wondering, the trees that I'm using for this were ethically harvested, meaning that this was a very small tree they were fixing to cut down for a subdivision. And so I actually went in and said, hey, can I have some of these before you cut them down? And I was able to go in and pull in 3 or 4 that were live, and then I pulled the standing dead one as well. Okay, so for the fine pieces that we're looking for in the middle, again, we need shreds, we need fluff, and we need the bark on the outside. All I'm doing is literally pulling the bark off, and you'll notice these pieces here. This is more what I'm referring to, especially when you're looking at a standing dead tree. And keep in mind, I'm just using the tulip poplar, or the tulip tree, if you will. And what we can do with this is take and pull off big chunks and then process this. So that's one way to look at it, is being able to process it, because this is what we're going to be using, is this stuff right here, which is the inside or the inner bark, if you will, and you can see more of it here. This is what we're going to use to light our fire, and what's going to be the centerpiece or the middle layer, if you will, of our torch. So one of the ways to get the smaller duff, if you will, or the stuff that's going to be the holder, if you will, is to actually take the back of your knife, so the spine of your knife, or in this case a piece of flint, and you'll notice we're just scraping up the nice little fine bits here. But when you get to areas like this, what we can do, you're going to see that. All I'm doing is just taking it down a little bit more because there's a lot of bark still left on, technically. The inner bark. You'll notice there's a bunch of fluff here, so we're taking that, what's produced, even though there's some longer pieces in there, there's a lot of fluff. So let's start with the processed bark in order to just start a fire. Basically what I've got here is 2 bundles that are already processed, or what I just finished processing, and all I've done is just take basically a bundle of bark with the fibers that are in there, and just kind of taken and twisted it up some, and then kind of worked it back and forth. And what you'll notice are these fine fibers that are in there now. So because of those fine fibers, that's what's going to catch fire. And then we can either strike it with a ferro rod or use our lighter. So let's go light one of those, and then what we'll do is we'll take one of the coals from the fire and actually make our torch, if you will, our match, so to speak. All right, folks, so I've processed this down a pretty good bit. Might need to process it some more. This humidity is ridiculous. So hopefully this will work. We're gonna use open flame because of the humidity. And because I think that that's still a little bit damp in the wood itself, or in the bark itself. Yeah, it's not wanting to play nice. So we're going to do it the other way. There we go. So the point's been proven. This stuff lights pretty easy. Best bet's to try to dry it off the best you can. Maybe it's inside your clothes or something like that in your pocket that's going to dry off real well. In this humidity, there's not a whole lot you can do about it. But thankfully that wind's starting to blow, pick up. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a coal from here and transfer it into our match so that we can use it somewhere else. So let's go make our match, and then that way we can use it for this fire in a minute. All right, folks, sorry if y'all get offended by sweaty shirts, but there is no option. All right, so what we're going to do is we've got our bases, which this is the shreds, and here's the finely shreds. We talked about what we're going to need for this specific match. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the shreds and the finely shreds and put it inside of a tube. Get my big tube down here. And again, I've created 2 of them. I could use them like this. However, when people were using these, what they would do is actually have like 2 or 3 of them. Stop, build a fire with the one if it's starting to go, you know, or starting to get dark, and then they would transfer it to another one. So all I'm doing is taking this, and we're filling it with this. So this is my my shredded. Okay, now should I process it more? Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Again, processing is simply just beating the crap out of it, for lack of a better term. I'm hoping this is going to work because my hands are sweaty. And I hate that for you folks, but hopefully this will work out. So that's good. All right, we'll put those down in the middle. More. You don't want to pack it too full because what we got to do is we got to put the fine parts in there, right? So we're going to take this and stick it down in the middle, and I mean down in the middle, so it's in the midst of all of that as well. Before I do, I'm just literally packing a cigarette. I mean, it's what it boils down to. All right, so we've got our bark, our shreds are finely shredded in the middle, and we're just going to take and squeeze it in, and then we can either wrap it with cordage. You see what it looks like on the inside. All right, so we can wrap it with cordage or whatever. I'm going to shove another piece of the fine shreds down in there, and again, we can wrap it with cordage, or we can use some of this to actually make it happen. Yeah, that's going to work fine. So let's go ahead and process this down. All I'm doing is breaking up that outer bark so I can use it as a cord, if you will. No, I'm not making cordage out of it, although I could. Poplar is a great cordage. Maybe we'll do that one in another one. But all I'm doing is just taking and making it to where it doesn't come open. Doesn't have to be tight, doesn't have to be anything. It's just making sure it doesn't come open. That's all it is. There we go. All right, and that's about it. That one's ready. I'm gonna go ahead and make another one. The reason I wanted two was because of that, being able to go in and transfer it if I wanted to. Not to mention, I'm going to use it for something later. I'm going to save that. And a lot of this was processed while I was in the rain. Actually, let's clean that out. While I was in the rain, so some of it's still damp. And all I'm doing is just putting bigger pieces of bark down in there. The reason being is because I want to do this one a little bit different. So now I've got bark on the outside, big solid piece, bark pieces on the inside, and then I put my shreds down in that. Loading up my cigarette, that's what it boils down to. And that one should be good to go as well. So you should see what we're looking at from there. And then I just tighten this down. And then we do us another cord across it. That should work. See some shreds down in this one, drop down in there. Some of the cord, some of the pictures I've seen, they actually have cord wrapped, several rounds down it. If I had cordage, that'd be exactly what I want to do, or if I wanted to process more of this, that's exactly what I would do. But I'm not gonna. So, all right, that one's, I'll call that one good. There we go. All right, so now I've got my two torches, if you will, or matches or whatever. Somebody asked me about this, was it an Apache match that I was making, and the answer was no. There's a little bit more around it, bigger pieces, and they use grasses, so I think I've already talked about this, so I'm not going to talk about it anymore. that. I'm starting to put so much in it that it's pushing off the bottom. Alright, so good to go with that one. Let's go in. I'm going to change the camera. We're going to move over to the fire and we're going to load this up. Alright folks, so one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to just reach in and grab a coal and put it in your match. We're going to use chopsticks this time. We may do a fire tongue another time. And hey, guess what? It wasn't supposed to rain today either. Wrong-o. So let's see if we can find us a good one I want to use here. That's the one I want right there. All right, so just taking and dropping that down in there. Put it down in a little bit. Yeah, okay, so I'm gonna have to bring this close for you to see what this looks like. Problem is I can't even see what this looks like from your viewpoint. All right, we're gonna move this back over to the shade, folks. All right, so the good news, good news, bad news. Good news is that this is why we use the match, or the torch, if you will, because it was so hot that my phone cut off, and it's been off for about 5 minutes. So there's that. So here's what you're looking at, folks. I don't have to do a whole lot to this. I just want to make sure that it's going to catch the other stuff. If I blow into it, I mean, you can see it smoking, but you should be seeing that. And that's what it looks like. So that's how we do it. That is how we do it. All right, folks, so that is how we do it. What we did today is we started a fire with poplar bark versus, hey, get off of there. All right, don't want to burn up all my other stuff because I can use that for more fires. What we did is we started a fire with poplar bark, showed you how to peel the bark off of a poplar, or if you want to go formal, it's a tulip tree. So just as a by the way, I don't need any hate mail. Tulip tree, tulip poplar, poplar tree. Pick one, all the same, eastern woodlands. So what we did is we started a fire with the poplar bark, distressed it, and then we peeled it as well. And then what we did is we made a torch that we can use to transfer fire from one location to another. So how would I go in and use this? I would actually take and literally unroll it and then use that as my tinder bundle for the next fire. And then again, when I'm done, I would take and load it into this one. So that's exactly how it's done. There is no questions, comments, or concerns about that part. I'm sure somebody's probably got a better way to make the match itself. This is the way that I learned. Not a big deal. Again, I would tighten it up if it were me and I was using this for real, I would actually use probably a little more cordage on it. I may make cordage to use on it. That's fine. Wasn't going to do it this time just because that's another lesson for another day. Anyway, guys, hey, thanks for watching. Thanks for all you do. Thanks for your likes, comments, subscribes, and shares. Don't forget to share. Don't forget to hit the notification, the little bell, so that you get notifications when the new ones come out. Got a lot of stuff coming up this summer, and not just on Two Tip Tuesday. So until then, use your instincts to survive. Thanks for watching. It's time for a shower now. It is hot.